Welcome to Phantom Zoned, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer and put it on trial for its various crimes against humanity. Should a film be found guilty, it will be jettisoned into the far, far reaches of space, a phantom zone, if you will. I'm your host, Adrian Torres, and joining me, as always, is my good ownership buddy, Scott Daly.
Oh, ownership, buddy? I don't understand this reference, Adrian. Explain.
I don't know. It takes too long to get into, but it pertains to the movie that we saw this week, which was 1985's Wheels of Fire. Most people would say that it's a Mad Max ripoff, and it's more so that a character is ripped off from Mad Max.
It has the apocalypse. It has deserts. It has cars, and it has a man in black leather. I don't understand how you could not say this is a Mad Max ripoff.
You described most of the post-apocalyptic films that are out there. I mean, he himself clearly is based upon Mad Max, but there isn't really anything else in the movie that would be tied back to it. So it's a very light ripoff.
I don't know. I mean, there's cars with a bunch of stuff on it, and there's car chases, and there's little people.
Okay, there's plenty of movies, plenty of much better movies, first of all, than this that feature cars that have a whole bunch of contraptions on them.
I'm not saying it's a good Mad Max ripoff, but
well, no. I mean, they're not Mad Max ripoffs, but I'm just saying movies that have cars that have things that are on them. You've got Dead End Drive-In, and you've got The Cars That Ate Paris that automatically come to mind. Both of those.
I have never seen those movies.
You should see them. They're both worthwhile.
Maybe we'll do a Phantom Zone one time. No.
Both of those are good and don't deserve to be subjected to this nonsense. This movie deserves it. IMDb has the synopsis of: in a post-apocalyptic future, a ruthless vehicular gang called the Highway Warriors is conquering the wasteland through murder and plunder. During a raid, they kidnap the sister of a road warrior named Trace. He brings hell down upon
them. I love these things because they're never accurate.
No.
So did they call them the Highway Warriors at once during the movie?
Nope. Never. They had a flag, and the flag denoted that they were part of the group, and we find out that they're led by Scourge.
Yeah.
And everybody keeps on mentioning Scourge, but nobody mentions their group. They mentioned several other groups, but we don't know how many gangs there are, first of all. And that's important to mention because we get the names of maybe 4 to 5 gangs, but we don't meet all of them. We'll get into it later on, but there's even a point that you meet another gang that's never referenced at any other point, and you don't know what their names are. The movie opens up very strangely, and you'd think that you had like a weird copy that you were watching, because it opens up and first of all it lets you know that it's got the seal of approval because it's a Vestron film. If you've listened to any of our episodes before, we've had a couple different films that fell under the Vestron title or tag. Most notably, unfortunately, Ghoulies 3 was on there.
Oh shit, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So that's but it goes from the Vestron logo to a swooping graphic of the words Wheels of Fire, and then just has a shot of a tailpipe or burner that's on fire, and then just has the names fly by on the screen.
I thought that was a wheel. I thought it was a wheel on fire. I wrote down
not a wheel.
I wrote down in my notes, Wheels on Fire is on brand. Opening credits show a wheel on fire.
No, it's not. It most certainly is not, because it's an exhaust, because it starts out with a moment ripped from Mad Max where the car peels off, but they've sped up what they've filmed, so it makes it look like the car is shooting off even faster. And the car is driven by Trace, who definitely looks like he won like some type of Mad Max like lookalike contest. because he's dressed completely in black. They even have a shot first in the car of it looking up. So you've got him shifting. That's more along the lines of Road Warrior than the first Mad Max. But nevertheless, they try to evoke that feeling. But then he shows up to this weird kind of ramshackle town that's quite well populated for these types of films.
Yeah, well, you got to get together and watch two people fight with pipes.
Okay.
Metal pipes.
This is what let me know that cars weren't going to be a big thing in the movie, because they mentioned that they're having this fight, this duel, and that they're essentially fighting for pinks because they've got the keys to the car they wear in a necklace around their neck. And when you beat up the other person, you then rip the necklace off them and you've claimed their car. So it's essentially a take on racing for pinks. In a movie where you're ripping off Mad Max, which is a series that's known for the car chases and everything, if you're starting out with hand-to-hand combat, you're kind of on the wrong footing.
I mean, let's be honest here, Adrian. It wasn't hand-to-hand. They had little mini pipes that they hit each other with.
Sorry, pipe-to-pipe. Pipe-to-pipe action.
But, yeah, and it's like, it's ridiculous because, like, two people are supposed to fight each other, people bet on them, and then immediately one of the people is subbed out for another person, which is not a thing you can do. So
and if they were going to do that, then why didn't he switch out with his girlfriend's brother, who's Trace?
Yeah, who's awesome.
Because he's like, oh yeah, I've heard a lot about you. You know, you got lots of big stories and everything. Why wouldn't you, if you saw that happen, be like, oh shit, I get invoked that too. I'm choosing this guy, because the boyfriend's getting his ass kicked, and the sister, Arlie, ends up saying, hey, Trace, you gotta go help out. And so then he ends up in the fight, just steals her key back because it's his sister's car who is being put up in place of collateral, basically. Mm-hmm. And then they run off to have a giant chase. And I'm like, okay, they're cutting this really close, but at the same time I go, okay, so they're going to have the chase, and then we're going to find out what's happened to the world, who any of these people are, because they had some people who were dressed like they were lepers in the crowd. There were people who were wearing different color coordinated outfits. There was a group of people who were dressed all in leather, who had no sleeves, were basically wearing vests. So they were all like different groups, but you didn't find out if this place is special, like a neutral ground or whatever for the gangs, or what exactly is going on in the world.
Yeah. See, I think I like this movie more than you because I didn't care. Like, they don't tell you what's going on. They don't tell you who is who. You just know these are our good guys and everyone else is against them because there's one gang chasing them, and then they get away from them. They kill them all, I think. They I like when she does that sweet, the guy almost falls off the cliff and then she comes back and finishes the job and knocks him all the way off with her car. That was pretty cool. But we're just kind of like thrown into it and they never really explain it. But I don't know. I think this is an 80-minute movie. I think if they had stopped to explain stuff, it would have felt way too long.
In plenty of these films, usually in lots of the exploitation quickie films that are trying to take the basic concepts of certain movies, and in this case it's Mad Max, they still sometimes will have like a little scrawl at the beginning that takes up less than 30 seconds to give you the basic tenets of the world that they exist in, and there's never a point that anything like that happens.
Yeah, but so would that have would you have just suddenly been like, oh, okay, I get it now? If they had said there was war
because they're not, and
then there was a bomb.
To me, they're not even trying. And that's one of the big issues with the movie, is that it continually just jumps from scene to scene to scene. And most of them are completely disconnected, except for Arlie's story, which we'll get to. And it's the most harrowingly unfortunate and fucked up thing. And that's where they decide, this is what we're going to follow through on. We're going to stick to everything's going to be the same in her story.
Yeah, no,
But
I mean,
all the other shit just keeps on jumping around and feels really discombobulated. There's things that it builds up and brings into existence only for people never to talk about it ever again.
no, I mean this. I don't want to confuse anyone. This movie sucks, and
Yes.
it's cruel and terrible. But at this point in the film, I was kind of into it.
You mean even when he was expending a whole bunch of he had the flamethrower that he was just shooting indiscriminately at everybody. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
man.
how do you have all this fuel? If there's one thing that we
He's
know,
Mad Max. He's fucking Mad Max. He's got it.
no, because that's part of the thing about Mad Max is that Max is continually going from one place to another, trying to find a way that he can score some more gasoline.
Yeah, and then put it into his flamethrower and light some fools on fire.
He also has unlimited ammo too, because out of all the weapons that he could possibly have in the future, he is one of the people who chose to have a machine gun. Like, there's a whole bunch of other people who have like bolt action rifles or just rifles that can only shoot like one at a time, where he's just like, yeah, I can shoot 30 bullets in 20 seconds. I have no cares in the world.
Yeah, the limited resources factor of the episode of the movie is it's not there. Everyone has plenty of resources. There's no fighting over resources. I mean, there's gangs fucking each other up, but it's not ever because like I need stuff.
Yeah, and there's no variety even in that first car chase, which I thought was funny because each of the 3 cars that are dispatched are destroyed the same way, and that someone bumps one of the cars and it careens off the side and rolls down a hill and then ends up either upside down or right side up. But once it's done tumbling, it explodes right away.
Yeah, is that not what cars do?
Well, technically at the end of the movie, that doesn't happen. So
is that not how cars work? I thought that's
no.
No one told me. That's sad.
That's unfortunate for you. So her brother Trace decides that he's going to split off and try to take some of the bad guys with him so that his sister's able to make a getaway.
Well, first, I want to stop you just because there's a ridiculous moment here where he's looking through his binoculars and clearly sees a gang coming.
And they stop for the conversation?
Yeah. And then
they make out in the car?
His sister says, "What is that?" And he hands her the binoculars, and we've seen through the binoculars. It's not like it's super far in the distance. It's like very clearly cars, motorcycles, gang coming to kill you. And she looks through binoculars and says, "I don't know, could be anything." And you're just like, what?
Excuse me. Now that we have this moment, let's have a quick heart to heart, because I want to make sure to press upon the audience the fact that you continually don't like my choice in men, and we split off years ago so that I could have my choice in men, and I choose this guy. And it's like, no, they're coming. We saw them.
Yeah.
You guys need to get out of there. So she gets into her car and starts making out with her boyfriend. It's like, okay, they're right there. If you guys get caught, I don't feel bad because you deserve to die at this point.
It's okay because they're going to drive a mile down the road and get out of their car and start doing it by a rock.
Yep. And that's after her boyfriend thinks that it's a great idea to moon the bad guys. And then they shoot at his ass.
Oh, yeah. There's a great line. It's like she says, "Almost lost your ass, didn't you?" And he's like, "What, you think so? You think I'd lose my ass? Yeah, if Trace were there, you would have lost your ass." And it's like, this is just quality dialogue.
Oh man,
saying ass 4 times.
So much of the dialogue is really confusing, because when Trace first grabs the binoculars to look off into the distance, mixed really weirdly, like it should be quieter than it is, but you can hear it perfectly fine, is that the boyfriend goes over there with Arlie and everything, and she's talking about the fight that they had with the other guy and everything, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big man." She's like, "Really? You're a big man?" did you grow? And he goes, I'm about to grow on you. And you're just like, what? Why are we able to hear this in the background?
Someone was sitting in a room and they were like, yes, got it. And they wrote that down.
This is great. Perfect.
It's in the movie.
Punch it up louder. This is going to get a laugh. Unfortunately for Arlie, she ends up getting captured by Scourge, his men. Scourge is the name of the main bad guy of the film, and you know that he's the main bad guy because anytime you see him out on the battlefield, he's got a giant belt that he wears, as well as NFL or just football pads,
sweet shoulder pads
that have been spray painted black. I don't know much about body armor, but I'm pretty sure that that's not going to stop anything.
Well, he's alive in the apocalypse, so it's clearly working.
He can do whatever he wants. When Scourge's men show up and everything, he tells them to grab Arlie out of the car. And when they're doing that, her boyfriend just automatically gives up.
He immediately turns on her.
He goes, do you want my car? Take my car. You want my girl? Take my girl. Just don't kill me. I'll join up with you guys. What do you want? What can I do?
just like the quickest turn in the world. He just sees the writing on the wall and is like, nope, I'm done. It's been fun.
That's it. Take her. And when the guys grab her right away, she ends up saying, you filthy fucking goons. Oh,
she has a lot of really well-timed zingers for a poor person who's going to go through just an unspeakable thing.
We have an example, don't we?
We do. Do you want me to play it now?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the matter, sweetheart? You don't like my looks?
Maybe it's a corpse.
It's just one of many.
One of many. We'll get to the downslide that her story has. It kind of starts here because I don't remember if Scourge tells him to strip her, but they just decide to like undo her top.
Yeah, well, you got the one guy tries to rape her right there. Like he rips off her shirt and then starts taking off his pants.
Taking off his pants, so his ass is out too.
Yeah, and then Scourge shows up and is like, no. Like, don't do that. That's wrong or something. And then proceeds to take her topless, mostly naked, and strap her to the roof of his car to be driven back to their base. Yes.
It's terrible.
And it's only going to get worse from there for poor Arlie.
Yeah. At the same time that this happens, we had what to me I thought was going to be the start of maybe Trace having like superhuman abilities, because he's in a gun battle with several guys that he's gotten like cornered off to the side. And while firing at them, he jumps in midair. And so it does like a couple slow motion shots of him firing people while he's in midair in slow motion. And then it jumps to real time and you realize that he's like 100 feet from the ground and his character plummets to the earth and he slightly bends his knees for impact and is totally fine.
Dude, I was like, he's Mad Max. He's got this.
I do not remember Mad Max doing anything like that. I'm pretty sure they made a point of Mad Max being human, and that's why he has a knee brace for most of the films.
Yeah, because he jumped off a tower and landed perfectly. And then this guy is just this is like Mad Max's origin story.
No. This guy is ostensibly at least 10 to 15 years older than anyone who's ever played Mad Max at any point in their career.
It's a post-origin story? Look, I don't know.
Yes. These are the later years that we don't know about. Oh, Jesus. It's just the whole movie. Because then they get back to Scourge's group's camp. And she has another colorful line that she throws out. I don't think you have this one.
No, I have one more, but I don't think it's this one.
Yeah, the other one's over. Because she ends up saying to Scourge, she says, "Let me go, you miserable fag." And his response is, "Flattery will get you everywhere, sweetheart."
Yeah, I mean, not only does this very much date us in the 80s, but this is like the cruelty of what they do to this character is the biggest problem with this movie. If you excise this entire part of the movie, you just have a pretty mediocre, boring Mad Max ripoff. But then you add this into it, and it just takes this insidious turn because this character is basically topless for the rest of the film.
And she is continually raped
over and over again.
You don't see it, but you get every insinuation. She gets back to the camp, and Scourge is talking with her and his first in command, and is telling his first in command, "No, you can have her once I'm done with her, but I get her first." And then when it cuts back to her storyline, he's outside the tent, and he's talking to his first in command, and he goes, "I'm done with her now. You can have her." And it keeps on cutting back to this story, but like for only like maybe 30 to 45 second chunks, if that. And it's usually just to see that another person is done going to town on her or is getting ready to.
Yeah, and it's like the movie thinks it's being okay by not showing the actual act of rape, which, I mean, I'm glad they didn't do that, but it doesn't win points for that. It has a character whose whole purpose in the story is to just be abused by these men the entire time and then die.
The only thing that we get from any of this is the fact that Scourge mentions that he's planning to try to overthrow and destroy this rival gang that we know nothing about because we don't know the names of any gangs at this point.
Yeah. And to talk about the complete inappropriateness of the rape once again, you can tell that it's not contextualized properly when you look at the comments on the YouTube videos for this, and everyone is talking about are this woman's boobs. And that's every single comment is like, really good boobs, really like those tits. And it's like, that's how you know that you have not done a good job.
Yes. Well, we found a crazy review from a site that's filled me in on several different movies that we're going to do over the next couple months, but was reading this review and all of a sudden saw it take a weird turn where this guy started decrying the fact that people were idiots for calling this movie misogynistic. And it's like, whoa. Hold on there, buddy. Yeah. This movie is very misogynistic.
Yeah, and he made those same bullshit arguments that it didn't show the rape, so it's fine. There was a lot of female characters. It's like, yeah, but it's so male gazy. They're all dressed as revealing as possible. It's the female characters are basically there to exist to make Mad Max guy look better. They have no real purpose of their own. Yeah, they're warrior women, I guess. In the barest sense of the term. Yeah. One of them just a random psychic that starts like getting really good at fighting at the end of the movie randomly, but we'll get there.
So we meet one of these women that he's talking about, Stinger, who is cornered by several bikers, basically, out in the middle of nowhere. Directly before this, we see like another caravan of people, and it's just, again, it's disconnected. The people end up winding up together later, but you're getting like several scenes of disconnected things that are happening. But Stinger has a whole bunch of biker and ATV guys that are after her, and it's borderline competent, but it still has a very wonky feel to it.
Yeah.
It's just very hodgepodge.
It is. And the weird thing about this is Mad Max, I can't remember his name, so I'm just going to keep calling him Trace knows at this point that they have his sister because he runs into the scumbag piece of shit boyfriend who says they took her and then asks for help.
He's okay. That's what we forgot to
mention. Yeah, we forgot. Oh my God.
Okay, so we've been making a big deal about, and maybe it's where the movie thinks that it's okay with what it's doing because it's being an equal opportunity offender. But the boyfriend, after he ends up saying, take my girl, take my car, just let me be part of the gang, he ends up, Scourge puts it to a vote and says, do you guys think that he should be part of the gang? Everybody says, yeah. And he goes, okay, you can be part of the gang as long as you pass initiation. And then 6 guys grab him and take him off to the side and start talking about who gets to rape him first. And then it cuts back to him a couple minutes later, and once they've raped him, they then decide that they are going to tie him up and drag him behind a car.
Yeah, so this is also what that stupid fucking review you read me said, that it's not misogynistic because a man also gets raped, which is the stupidest fucking argument I've ever heard of in my entire life. Stop writing rape into your movie for no reason, and then maybe I'll respect your movie.
Yes. But so while he's dying, he mentions to Trace that Scourge has his sister and everything.
So at this point of the movie, you think Trace's goal is find Scourge, get his sister back. But does that stay that way?
It's a couple days away. He's going to make his way there. He's more interested by the bald eagle / hawk, whatever it is that's up in the sky. That belongs to our character, Stinger. Were you able to get this clip?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, beautiful.
They call me Stinger.
Figures.
So what do you say?
I don't even like you very much. I like your bird. Get in.
That's the first dialogue they have with each other. Like there's no lead into that conversation. He's done is shown up, see that somebody was in trouble and try to help them, and his decision is, I don't like you, but I dig that bird.
So get in my car. Yeah.
I also like how they haven't said anything to each other, and she ends up saying, my name's Stinger, and he goes, figures. What?
Yeah, as if that's revealing of something.
Exactly. How is that a rational response to have to anybody?
It's
we then get the psychic who's running across or running from a vehicle because she's in a car with her grandpa, and grandpa's car stalls, and he tells her to get out, and he dies, unfortunately. But she just runs across the desert, and then the scene ends.
Yep.
And then we get to a scene where there's they're getting ready to go to sleep, basically, and there's an argument between Trace and Stinger on where they're going to sleep, and innuendos are made. Not very good.
I don't think they're innuendos. I mean, he says you can come in the car, and she says, just because I'm riding with you doesn't mean I'm fucking you. That's not too much of an innuendo.
No, not that part. But then after that, because they continually walk from like one place to another, like within like 10, 15 feet of each other. And he keeps on making offers to be like, we could sleep here. and then she's just like, nah, and just keeps on walking like further and further away from the car.
Yeah, she's very far away from the car. But she's got her hawk.
Not at that point, because she's got a gun that she's walking around.
Yeah, I guess the thing about the hawk is that she has a hawk, but she also never has a hawk because the actress, I guess, either wasn't comfortable with or they couldn't do it. But she never holds the hawk. Her and the hawk are never in the same frame at the same time. There is one time where the hawk flies down, she holds out her arm, it cuts to an insert shot of just a floating arm with a hawk glove on. The hawk lands on the arm and then immediately takes off, and then we cut back to her with her arm out of frame, like letting it go. And that's the extent of the hawk.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. So the hawk's nowhere to be seen or heard at this time, and she's walking around, and all of a sudden this white arm pops up from nowhere, grabs her leg, and pulls her underground. And we get to meet the unfortunately named Sand People, who have giant white fright wigs and then are albinos.
Yeah, and you never, they have the weirdest, they have very high-pitched voices. But it's so dark in all those underground scenes, I couldn't see them.
It's like a take on the Sand People / Jawas, like how they're talking and everything. And the set's really dingy because all you basically have is just like one jail cell that's down there. And the girl who was running across the desert happens to be in there, and she has a weird conversation with Stinger. that's mostly her saying, yeah, no, I know what you're thinking. I'm a psychic.
Yeah. She's like
I can hear your thoughts.
They capture people like you that are dumb enough to go walking in the desert alone, and then they eat them. How do you know? I can hear their thoughts.
I can hear thoughts.
What?
It's like, gee, thank you, exposition dump.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get another shot back to see what terrible life Arlie's having. And Scourge is telling her that she needs to behave because that's the difference between him being rough, which involves him grabbing her breast forcibly, or nice, which then is him massaging her breast.
Hey, it's totally feminist movie, right?
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, and she has a comeback line at this point, which I don't know if you. Let me go, you miserable jerk! Yep.
Yeah, and she's then, like, that's her whole point in the movie, is just to yell stuff and be abused.
Yeah, well, her follow up directly to that is she says that, and then they stop for a second, and then someone tries dragging her off, and she says, "Stay away from me, you pervert." And that's when, like, he's just walking towards her. And then she says that, and that's when he decides that he's going to take off his pants. And you're just like, I don't know where you're going with this or what is happening.
I died. It's awful.
Trace notices that Stinger's far away from him. And I don't know if he gets curious or what, but he decides to go look for her, which, of course, means that he's going to get pulled down by the Sand People, too. And a little battle ensues. You have a kind of cool shot of this rickety bridge that they've constructed underground. Like, I don't know if it's just like a natural cave system and they're like, oh shit, there's a gap here, let's put this bridge down. Or I mean,
set is so dark you can't really see anything,
but you can see the bridge and you're like, oh, they took time to construct this bridge. It's kind of cool, looks Indiana Jones-ish. I get that. But then Trace gets them out of the cell and tells them to run. He grabs like a Molotov cocktail type thing and throws it on the bridge so it starts to catch on fire. And then he says, "Gotta move. This bridge is getting hot." And I'm like, yes, you just threw the thing on the bridge that's making it hot.
That's how you sell a screenplay right there. You just gotta drop one like beautiful stingers like that in there. I'm surprised he didn't wink at the camera as he said it.
Yeah, well, it's almost that good because then the next shot is of a little person, whose name we believe to be is Mutt, because that's what they call him.
That's what they call him.
But there's nowhere in the end credits that anybody is listed as Mutt, and there's nowhere on IMDb where somebody's listed as Mutt. There is somebody who's listed as Pug, but that's the closest thing.
Yeah. I mean, assumingly, maybe they just never actually bothered to refer to him by his name.
Yes. Oh, I actually think I found who he is. I think he's just credited as Sergeant on there.
Well, that
makes less sense. Really help us out. But because he when Trace shows up to help, because the convoy that this guy is in the truck for ends up getting stopped by this crazy gang that kind of looks like the Reavers a little bit from like Firefly, if that makes sense. But they act like cavemen, but they're all messed up. Not really like zombies, but they kind of have that feel. But they refer to the caravan of cars as the ownership convoy. And I don't know what that means at the time because we haven't been told what any of these groups are.
It's just world building.
But he does help, and when he sees Mutt is hiding behind something, he calls him out, and he's wearing a cap, I guess, and I guess the hat that he's wearing has like the designation of sergeant or something like that. We're able to find out that he's part of the ownership soldier group thing because Spike is able to read his thoughts.
Yeah, but also like he's talking just not in English. But she can read his thoughts, so it's fine.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell if like because they make it. I think they try to make a joke about sign language because he is talking a lot with his hands, but it's not like he's signing at all. Yeah, and it sounds like he's trying to speak something, but then I can't tell if it was like something was wrong with his throat and that's just how it sounded, or if he was trying to be like they were trying to make it sound like it was a foreign language.
I don't know. It
wasn't really clear. Stay awake, Scott. Stay awake.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We have to make it through this. So there was a group of guys who come back to Scourge, and they mentioned that they just bled a tanker dry so that they could get more gas. Something we don't see. It would have been interesting to see, how the dynamics of these groups work, but the movie doesn't care about it. And that's when he ends up telling his first in command, "Oh, great job with the tanker. I'm done with Arlie if you want to have your way with her." And but the way they say it makes it seem like it's supposed to be a comedic little thing, but you can't really tell because the majority of the dialogue in the movie is like 80 yard to the next level.
Yeah. And that's the main problem. Like this movie wants to kind of be like a fun, adventure-y comedy.
Yeah.
With this undertone of awful. And they just keep cutting back to this awful and then intermixed with jokes about the little person and jokes about the people getting along. And then they go to the place we're going to get to next. And there's funny, crazy people. And then and then we cut back to rape.
We get to... So... The ownership comic was trying to get to this place that was called the True Believer Sanctuary. I don't know. They're called True Believers, is what the group's called. And they're trying to get there because they were going to be giving gas to help these people out. And we get some insane but glorious dialogue and probably one of my favorite passages in the movie.
This is a good place. People here got good thoughts.
Sure, it's a good place. Everybody wants to come here. But they want to help me build my rocket ship. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful? We only got a couple more months to finish her, and then we got us a liftoff. Things haven't been too pleasant on this planet lately. That's why we're flying off to Paradise. That's the newest planet in our solar system. It was discovered the last year before the war, and it's only 20 million miles away. Well, there's room for everybody on the Paradise Express.
I'm glad we're here.
Just every time I hear that, I can't help but laugh because there's certain pieces of the lines that the guy's just throwing off. Everybody wants help with my rocket ship.
I have so many questions.
My favorite is also when he goes, "It's only 20 million miles away."
Oh, is that it? Okay.
That's nothing. That's nothing. And they are literally building a giant rocket ship in the middle of their town.
Who knows how many of the very extremely limited resources left on this world have gone into building a fucking rocket ship that's going to go to Paradise.
And up steps this guy who turns out to be an ambassador that Trace used to work with because years and years ago he worked as part of the ownership group, and so he knows kind of about their plans and how things run down, which is why he kind of questions why they're there with the True Believers. But right before we're able to get any like history, it jumps back to Arlie as she's passed off to another guy, and then it just cuts straight back to it. Like you just see another guy walk into the tent and get ready to take off his pants, and she just kind of looks over at the wall, and then it cuts back to a conversation that Trace is having to like pertaining to what the ownership group wants to be, because he knows that they usually come in with oil and gas at first, give everybody what they want, say that they're going to help co-run the town, and then when people get addicted to using the gasoline and everything, they end up upping their prices. They're even referred to as the new government. And he's kind of explained, or the ambassador tries to explain to Trace, hey, what we're trying to do is noble, which he has a great response to.
I've been sent out here to enlist the support of emerging nations like this.
Emerging nations? My ass! This is a goddamn cracker factory.
A goddamn cracker factory.
I mean, let's be honest here. He's got a very good point. These people are insane. And the psychic girl just loves it here. She's so happy.
She's so pleased. She's also dressed differently from everyone else in the entire movie. Like, she looks like she's coming from, like, Prairie Days or something, you know?
It's that psychic outfit.
So you're saying in this post-apocalyptic world that's what you have to wear if you're a psychic?
Yes.
No one's bothered by the fact that she's a psychic. Everybody thinks it's a little confusing and unfortunate, but they think it's just more unfortunate and a nuisance than like, holy crap, you can read people's minds.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say that she can't, and she's just thinking she can, and it makes everything more funny, and I enjoy it more.
Again, we cut to Arlie in hell for 30 seconds. Then we get the weirdest cut back because we see her. This is the scene where we see her being passed around by like a whole bunch of men, and she's just screaming and topless, and then sent back into the tent. And then it cuts to Trace and Stinger having an argument where he mentions that he used to be part of the ownership group, and she said, "Oh, so you're a quitter and you just like to run and do whatever you want. Well, you must be a pussy." And he takes offense to that. They continue to argue about ideology until they start to actually tussle and then roll down the side of a hill. And then he rips open her shirt, starts sucking on her neck, and they have sex. To differentiate the insinuated rape that they have with Arlie, they then have a weird, almost, I guess, tender / psychedelic sex scene where everything's like a burnt orange glow and their bodies are writhing together. It's so
weird, and it's so uncomfortable.
It's upsetting.
Like, you know, at this very moment, his sister is getting raped again, and like,
it again. They finish having sex, and it cuts to Arlie walking down a road, and you're like, "Oh, right, she finally got away from this group of dudes," and a couple of guys grab her and drag her back to the camp.
Yep, and there we go. Yeah,
and then they end the scene.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, who edited this? Like, did you not think that those things would juxtapose terribly on each other? And like, at this point, you're starting to think that Trace is not actually looking for his sister anymore, because he's just
in the next scene.
Yeah. So yeah, then
he only tells Spike too. He tells Spike, and then
who's the psychic girl? I don't think we mentioned that. Her name is Spike for some reason.
Out of nowhere, no one refers to her. She's never like, "Hey, I'm Spike." Just all of a sudden, in this scene, he's getting ready. Trace gets ready to leave, and he's like, "Hey, Spike, nice to see you. Make sure you watch over the town till I get back." And she's like, "You're leaving?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've got somewhere I need to be." He doesn't say bye to anybody else. It's just like, "Hey, psychic girl," and just takes off. Like, you don't even know that he's actually going to try to find his sister. And he doesn't get very far because he gets like maybe a mile or two away, and then sees Stinger's hawk up in the sky, and he's like, "Oh, that must mean that something bad's going on," and drives back to town, because directly after he rolls out of town,
suspiciously quickly after he left,
like maybe 5 seconds after he leaves town, all of a sudden things start blowing up, including the poor man's rocket ship.
Oh, that was so sad. His poor rocket ship.
We hear his like very intriguing, fantastic, super happy story, and then 5 minutes later, his rocket ship just gets blown the fuck up, and you're like, well, clearly that's not important to the film.
No.
At all.
Along with so much fuel. There was probably so much fuel in that rocket ship.
And the way that they're blowing it up is by using a mortar. And the mortar makes probably one of the funniest sounds in the entire film.
Yeah, first of all, let's talk about how weird it is that they would even have mortars in post-apocalypse. But yeah, here's the sound. It's great. It's a very distinct sound.
That's a video game sound.
Yeah.
Oh, mortars. Mortars is the weapon of choice of these guys. Later in the film, in the giant climactic battle, they end up using mortars as well.
So many of them too.
These are people that you see walking around like with machine guns and everything, but they're like, no, we've got to be X amount of yards away before we can engage this group.
Well, and then like their opponent in the final battle is using like artillery cannons, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on here?
Where did you get this? I just think it's funny that the bald eagle is the one that like signals it, because it's not like you see Stinger send it up like, oh no, things are blowing up.
No,
it just the hawk just happens to be, or whatever it is, happens to be flying around, and he's like, oh shit, I should probably get back there. But by the time he gets back, all the damage has already been done. Yep. Everybody's already dead.
There's our hero saving the town. Oops.
Spike survives because she hid behind a rock, and Stinger just magically survives.
Yeah, and so does Mutt or Pug or whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah,
Sergeant, whatever.
And they realize that it's Scourge's men who end up doing this, and it hits home with Trace because he ends up seeing this guy that has a locket of his sister's, and he hands it to Spike to say, "Hey, can you tell if she's okay? Can you feel any energy?" And Stinger turns to him and says, "Why didn't you tell me that was your sister's?" And I'm like, because he just found it on this guy's body.
Like, what do you want? Like, because for like half a second she thought he had some other girl, and then so she got really mad in her head, and then found out it was his sister, and then okay, I'm okay with it now.
So they're told that the fortress is where she's being held, and the fortress is basically an old military base. That has giant, like, would you say those are World War I or World War II guns?
They look like World War II guns, kind of.
Sure.
It's so, because like Trace finds that locket and then he's like suddenly like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be saving my sister.
Gotta go get my sister. He shows up at the base, knocks a couple guys out, and looks in this room and sees Arlie on the other side begging men for food.
Yeah, like she's saying, now, I will have sex with you.
Exactly.
Just
she's
give
offering
me some
herself
food.
up to these guys for food. And it's just like it's really disturbing.
It's really great. We got all those funny scenes of Trace hanging out with his new buddies while all this is happening.
So he grabs his sister and tells her, "Oh, run for it." And she starts to run and gets caught by two guys and ends up yelling, "You filthy fucking goons!" And I'm just like, okay, what's going on? 2 seconds ago, you were just in the state where you're so far gone, and you're not being fed that you're now offering yourself, but now you're trying to fight back with them as you're escaping, even though you seem completely out of it. And because Trace went in trying to save his sister without a plan, he ends up getting captured by Scourge. And Scourge is like, "Oh, I don't understand why you care for this woman so much." And Trace says, "Oh, she's my sister." And then Scourge gets really close up to him and says, "Then that makes me almost family."
Someone needed to be on the set and just go, no, you cannot do that. You cannot have this character say that.
No. Like, that's disturbing, but then you realize that the people who were writing this movie just didn't really think anything out, because Scourge tries to set up his plan and why everything's going on the way it is, and he says, "I'm just trying to stop those bureaucrats from destroying my lifestyle."
Oh, look, a sympathetic character now or something. Why are we doing that? What's the motivation to do that? Let's just keep the guy who is serial raping as a bad guy. Let's just do that.
So, speaking of the serial raping and the character who you're not really sure entirely what's going on with their mental state, we see Arlie in like a dungeonous room, and a guy comes in and starts to take off his belt and walks close to her. And this is when she has the wherewithal to decide that she's going to take his knife and stab him in the dick.
I mean,
I was glad that she did that.
Oh yeah, I was very happy.
It's at minute 65 of an 81-minute film.
She just had to wait for her brother to come back, and then his mere presence, the presence of the road warrior, encouraged her.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. So they get ready to ready to fight with the ownership group, and Trace ends up getting out of his because he's tied to like a cannon basically, so he's told that he can see everything as it goes down. He ends up getting out of it, and he starts to run off and sees Stinger's hawk, and that causes him to go, oh, okay, that means that they have this, and this set up. If we do this, and this, we can break their defenses. And he's telling Arlie, who ends up getting out like the same time that he does. And then he starts to enact his plan of trying to go, like, because he's behind enemy lines, try to defuse everything before the ownership group shows up. And Arlie sees that he's basically pinned down and decides to run up to hit the detonator, get shot in the shoulder, and then crawls forward so that she can hit the detonator and is shot promptly 2 more times.
My favorite part about this is not only did that happen, but she's running up to the detonator. The guys are facing the other direction. And our hero sees her running up to the detonator and yells her name, which causes the guys to turn around and see her and then shoot her. So he killed his sister by being an idiot.
The entire crux of the film is that he's supposed to go and save his sister, and she dies.
Yay, good job. But she died blowing up those mines fractions of a second before they would have been blown up anyway.
But it's to save the ownership group so that they're able to drive off to the side and mount their own offensive. But even though this was part of Scourge's plan was thwarted, they are met by more mortar fire. That sound. It gets me every time.
I love it.
Spike and Mutt are running with the forces, and Spike ends up turning out to actually be a decent fighter. Not something that's alluded to at any point during the film. Just all of a sudden, she's killing fools left and right.
You know, it's funny because it's almost like she's like using her psychic powers to predict
their movements, but that's never been discussed.
No, and that's not what it is. What it is really is just that they're bad at choreography, and she looks like she's predicting movements because she knows exactly what they're doing next. But like, you could see a little bit of a headcanon moment for that to say, oh, she can predicting because she's psychic. But it's funny.
So she's able to kill like 4 or 5 different guys, and then sees Mutt, and then immediately guys show up with guns. And the second they show up with guns, Mutt drops his guns and raises his hands while everyone else is fighting. And then he does it a second time. They get by the next group, and then another group shows up, and he drops his gun and raises his hands. And I'm like, I don't know if that's acting or like the guy's just genuinely scared that people are there with guns.
It could be a little bit of both.
Yeah. So Stinger ends up fighting with the really creepy first in command of Scourge's group, and he has a sword and she has a gun. He starts running towards her and she shoots him like 4 or 5 different times, and he keeps running, and instead of moving out of the way, literally taking 2 steps back to the side, he ends up hitting her and knocks her off the cliff, which bloodies her up. And Spike comes running by and sees her, and she looks at Spike and goes, "Hey kid, did we get him? Did we win the war?" It's like, you were just fighting the war 2 seconds ago, and you fell like 50 feet.
The thing
I don't think in that period of time the war was won.
The thing about this that I like the most, though, is she gets this tragic death scene. His poor sister, the instigating event of this whole movie, gets nothing. Like, she dies, and her brother basically just looks sad for a second, and then we just move right on with the plot.
Yeah, except for it turns out that he was angry and decided to drive away, and Scourge ended up coming after him, and all of a sudden Scourge is looking around, is like, oh no, I can't find Trace. Where'd he go? All of a sudden it pans up to show his car flying off a cliff so that it's able to land with pinpoint accuracy, so it destroys only the driver's side of Scourge's car, instantly killing him. And then Trace just walks up to the cliff and looks over, and we get voiceover from Spike saying, "We won, Stinger. The ownership has total control." Knowing everything that we know about the movie, and the fact that Trace has even said these guys are dicks and they fuck everything up, that's maybe not the best note to end on.
Nope. And the good guys won, but they're also bad guys.
Oh, and he just leaves. But the next scene, once it's done, Trace walks up to Stinger and Spike, and gives Spike his sister's old necklace, and tells her, "Hey, do good here," and then just leaves.
Oh man!
And then the credits rolled, and I'm like, wait. So the girl that he liked ends up dying. Dude, she doesn't need to.
Yeah.
His sister, who, like I said, is the whole instigating crux of the film, ends up dying.
Spike is safe, and Mutt is safe.
Spike and Mutt are still with the ownership group.
I think
those are new government.
I think those are the only two characters that have names that are alive at the end of this movie, besides our main character.
Trace has a name, and it's just thinking about this movie is disturbing. Watching it is an insane experience because of all the different times they cut back to Arlie's it's just troubled existence for, like I said, less than a minute every single time.
It's this uncomfortable rot in the center of the film, and it eats away at everything. And like, even the parts that I think would be enjoyable, like for their so bad it's good nature, can't be, because at the center of it you have this really disturbing, like, the person who wrote this and edited this, I'm very interested in if there's something seriously wrong with them, because it's like the amount of times we cut back to just so you didn't forget there's rape going on is
her life is terrible.
Yeah, she's so
probably
weird.
Thinking about suicide daily.
It's so weird. It's so out of tone with every other part of the movie. Every other part of the movie is this fun, lighthearted kind of adventure film, and then you have this, and it's just so weird. I don't understand. Like, you could have them capture her. That's fine. Like, it's an 80s movie. It's not very surprising that you're going to damsel a female character, but why that far with it? Like, ugh.
I don't. Yeah, it's so weird. It's so disturbing. The guy who wrote it has just done basically really cheap / exploitation films, and they all look really crappy and really shitty.
Not surprised.
But the story was written by a woman named Ellen Collette. I don't know how much of the story actually made it into it. So that would be the interesting thing to find out how involved, how much of the story that she came up with included the horrible things that happened to Arlie.
Yeah, I mean, because it does not feel like it was written by a woman. That's for sure.
Yeah. And you can understand, if she had a really cool bare bones, even for a Mad Max type story, and then it was this guy coming in who wrote it, Frederick Bailey. If him becoming a part of it, he decided to put that in there,
Yeah, that would not surprise me.
It's messed up because that just, how the movie ended up. There's no way to fix that. It didn't matter how much they did. That's just more so a curiosity, because what ended up on the screen is it's terrible.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Absolutely.
Did you have a ray of sunshine on this one?
Yeah. So there's a few moments of the movie where there are characters just kind of like filling in background talking, and just for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the mix for the background talking was too loud or just I was bored, so I was paying attention to it. But it's just the way they do the background talking is so unnatural and weird. I actually have some of it here that I'll play, but it's very strange, and I quite enjoyed it.
They got in there. Yeah, I got that. All right. William Bell, come on. Get down there. Get over there. Get that guy. All right, let's go.
It's just like, you can tell they just make some noise. Just make some noise and do some stuff, and then we'll figure it out. And it's just really funny.
No, the whole movie's filled with that. Like, anytime there's a panning shot, instead of it just being quiet, they have to have like a word or two that's been ADR'd in there. There's really weird conversations that people are having. I would say that it was like Robert Altman-esque if there was any talent behind like the filmmaking of this film, which there's not.
No.
So it's just really, really weird non sequitur lines that are in there. Because like when they're taking Arlie's boyfriend at the beginning and they're giving him the initiation, there's a couple guys who are talking about how attractive this guy is, and they want first dibs at him. But it's like while the camera's panning away, and it's just like, why is that what you decided to punch up the scene? Is that what you felt it was missing?
It needs some of that random.
Yeah. We hit upon my main ray of sunshine in the film, which was the crazy Rocket Man speech, because he's just he's a joy. He belongs in a completely different movie. And even if we do end up voting for this movie to go in the Phantom Zone, I want the caveat of he doesn't go, because he technically could have a rocket ship to go on his own way.
Yeah, he escapes with his rocket ship. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
He's the best actor in the movie, if you can believe it.
Oh yeah. But I wanted to give a special shout out to the music in the film, because the music feels, while it does have some elements that would feel like they belong in an 80s action adventure film, it's a lot better quality than the majority of the films that we see.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think
like
that's
it's a full score. It's not just done on like a Casio and a woodwind.
Well,
it fits. It has that rousing adventure feel. Unfortunately, it's underscoring all the scenes of this movie.
Yeah, well, I think that fits into one of the things that I was talking about a little bit earlier, that, and I know you kind of disagree with me here, but the movie is not good, but it's not like, and it has a low budget, but it's not like cheap and poorly made in the way a lot of the other movies we watched on here. Like, I actually think like some of the car chases, obviously they didn't have a lot of money. They couldn't do the physical stunts the way that a Mad Max movie could actually do. But I mean, they went all out. They threw cars off of cliffs. And there's kind of some kinetic cutting in some of the action cutscene, like the
Scott.
Action car chases.
Scott.
What?
I have a simple question to put this to the rest, to see what side that you come down on. Would you rather this movie or America 3000?
Like action wise?
No, I'm just saying as a movie.
Well, I mean, America 3000 doesn't have this horrible underbelly in it. So yeah, I'd say America 3000.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to me. America 3000 is absolutely terrible for its own reasons, but it works better as a film than this does. It doesn't matter how competent you are with certain things. This is how the movie is, and we have to grade it on a whole.
Well, yeah, I understand that. My point was just that it's a real missed opportunity, because there is some competence in this film.
I think they still would have failed even if they took out the terrible Arlie storyline.
Yeah, that's possible.
because there's still too many continuity issues and plot holes in the story, and it was clearly made that they needed to hit a certain budget and have it shot within a certain amount of time, and then move on to the next film. You can tell with the 81-minute runtime. That's why it's like that.
Yeah.
And it was put out by Vestron, and Vestron was a studio that was trying to churn out as many films as they could.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay, I think it's time to vote. Scott, you go first.
It's guilty. Even the small pieces of it that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to watch this movie. I think there's so many Mad Max ripoffs out there, and you can watch them without feeling like a gross human being, like this movie makes you feel.
Yep, totally agree. I almost feel like sometime within the next 3 to 6 months, we will try to find another Mad Max ripoff to hopefully wash this taste out of our mouth.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So guilty. Before we finish and we get to the last little bit, were there any clips that we didn't get to play?
No, I think we got them all. Yeah.
Perfect. I just wanted to that because that's a weird thing about this movie. As gross as certain parts are, and as poorly made as it is, there are parts that are just completely insane that it's great to listen to and marvel at, and just be like, how did you come up with this decision?
I mean, that's the weirdest part too, is that like it has those moments that, you know, we've laughed a lot during this podcast, and it has those really funny, ridiculous moments, but you just keep every time you get one of those, you have to.
Hey, look, it's Arlie.
Yeah, like really, it's awful.
It's like a parent scolding you for something that you're enjoying.
Yep. Ugh.
All right, Scott, where can we find you on the internet?
I am on Twitter at ScottDaily85. That's DALY. And also, we have another podcast this week called The Kryptonian Collection. It's a monthly podcast where instead of looking at bad movies like this one, we talk about good movies, and we're trying to come up with a list of the best movies ever. And one challenger will come in and nominate a movie, and then the 3 people on the council will vote on that movie, and then we'll decide if it gets in or not. This month we did 12 Monkeys. Which was
it's a great film.
It's a great movie, but you have to see if it's good enough to get in.
Yes. I can be found on Twitter at Adrian Torres. You can find my writing on boomhowdy.com. I put out 2 reviews last week. One for Hitman's Bodyguard. Wasn't the biggest fan of it. I know that I'm very much in a small minority when it comes to that, because lots of people are enjoying it, even if it's just it's so. And then I also did one for Dave Made a Maze, which is the complete opposite of Hitman's Bodyguard. It's actually really good and really inventive. There's a lot of heart in it, and it's great. It's in limited theaters, but you can also rent it on VOD like Vudu, iTunes, Google Play. It's on all those places. It's like 93 minutes, but it's really well done. It's really creative, and has some great little moments of both pathos and satire sprinkled through it. We have not decided on next week's episode. I've got a couple ideas milling around, and I'm going to throw them at Scott and see what happens. But I know that we're going to be having lots of fun things happen in the next couple months. September might be a shorter month for us because Scott and I will be going to Fantastic Fest. So there might be a week that we don't have an episode. It just depends on how it,
I mean, we are going to do an episode. We are going to do a podcast while we're at Fantastic Fest, or that's the plan at least. It will not be a Phantom Zoned podcast, but it will be just a general podcast about the fest and the movies we've seen and that kind of stuff. So
people may be drunk during the recording of that, depending upon the hour.
If you're subscribed to this feed on iTunes or anything, you'll get that as well, because it'll all be on the same feed. But yeah, we might have less Phantom Zoned episodes than we normally do.
Yeah. In October, I know that we're going to be gearing up for some fun movies, and I think we're going to have a couple guests stop by. Working it out right now, but we've got a couple people that we're talking to that I think will be a lot of fun.
Awesome. I love October. October is one of my favorite months.
It's great. It'll be perfect because there's plenty of bad films that fit within the horror subset.
If there's one genre that has a ton of bad movies in it, it's horror.
They're sometimes endearing, depending upon how they're done, but that's an entirely different story. Scott, do you have one of these clips that you feel like you should play us out on?
Oh, I don't,
Dealer's choice.
Oh man, I was so unprepared for this. Let's see. Which one is my favorite?
I think it's an obvious choice. Don't say it, just play it.
All right, here we go.
This is a good place. People here got good thoughts.
Sure, it's a good place. Everybody wants to come here. But they want to help me build my rocket ship. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful? You know, we only got a couple more months to finish her, and then we got us a liftoff. Yay!